We've got two little clips to show you that kind of show two different lights on prostitution. It won't surprise you to know that I think that prostitution should be legalised and that prostitutes should have all protections possible. There is a little bit of a disclaimer with my feminism when it comes to prostitution. I do think that women should be afforded every sort of right and protection when they are prostitutes.
Protection to certain categories of people, and they cause problems for other categories of people.
I think that criminalisation of prostitution only seeks to really perpetuate the problem. I think it drives it deeper underground. I think it makes sex workers more unsafe. I think that prostitution should be decriminalised and it should be regulated. The same way that in the same way that you should decriminalise marijuana, you should regulate it, you should tax it, you should make sure that there's a safe supply, you should make sure that the dealers are shut out.
Because basically women are seen as only worth something for their virginity, so we can sell them to husbands to get cheap. I mean, if you've ever watched any of Luther's documentaries about prostitution, he always interviews the men who go and see the prostitutes, and they always cite they want company and they like enjoying things without relationships. And I think those are very valid choices for one's life. The idea that money's changing hands complicates things, obviously, but I think that issue is more to do with the capitalist society that tells us everything is for sale.
In other countries within the world, this is more accepted and indeed wholly accepted in some areas. So I think we should stop sort of looking at it just from an individual perspective here. And I think people talked about morality as well. It should have been mentioned that, you know, Western and British ideas of morals and what's right and wrong isn't the same all over the world. It's different in different places.
And individuals who might sell services, sexual services to people with disabilities, we refer to them as sexual auxiliaries. And there are countries in the world where individuals who serve as sexual auxiliaries are actually seeking rights. A lot of countries there are sex workers seeking rights, but there are those who actually sell these services specifically to individuals with disabilities who seek different rights, who want to be recognized as a profession.
I think it's about a change in social attitudes, a change in media attitudes. I think when disabled people are seen as equal people and equal sexually as well, then all of us will be empowered to move on from this outdated and actually pretty insulting notion that disabled people can only have sex by paying for it.
The next question we're going to be asking the panelists is, could prostitution ever be fully accepted in society, just like sex before marriage has become more acceptable in the eyes of many individuals?
My opinion, it's not possible to have true intimacy with someone that you're paying to be there or who's paying you, because there'll always be a power dynamic that prevents the kind of intimacy sex was designed for. Real intimacy isn't something that can be bought.
On Islam, being a Muslim doesn't really cover everything in Islam. There's a lot of aspects that we lack knowledge. But in my opinion, prostitution is an issue that needs to be dealt with rather than criminalizing people doing it or taking it as a negative thing.
I mean, most of the women or even men are forced to do, most of them at least. Some of them they do it by, because they think it's a job and they're free to do it, and others are really, most of them are forced. And this is where the issue actually erupts in your humanity. You're making yourself less, despite being disabled or not. It's something we in Islam think it's actually degrading humanity.
Human trafficking, I think it is a very, very important point to bring up, especially if you are looking at this from a
a very liberal point of view in the sense that we do have women who choose it as a valid career, but also we need to accept that there is a huge human rights violation issue going on. Now, researchers have found that, you know, the majority of people who are trafficked are not necessarily sex workers. So people who are trafficked for any reason are not necessarily sex workers, and sex workers are not necessarily trafficked, but it is a massive issue.
From research, when it comes to clients and trafficking, Glasgow Council has a very active group of women's, it's part of the police group, and they look at trafficking. And they have found a category of client called the ethical John. And the ethical John, John being the name of the client, is the individual who goes to a brothel, pays to have sex with an individual, knows while he's doing it that she's probably trafficked.
When we're talking about issues that affect people's day-to-day lives, these aren't just prostitutes, these are individual people with lives and families and stories. So like what you're saying, it's bigger than